If you've been with us for the Lenten journey, I'm trying to stay close to that theme of understanding the Bible, the story of, as the love story of God reaching out to us. And Mother Church is real intentional each year during Lent for these 6 weeks about reminding us again of the story of our faith. Because as we understand these stories and these people and these events, then we have a greater appreciation for who Jesus is. And that first week, we just started with Adam and Eve. And it's so essential to remember original blessing precedes original sin. Like God's original intent, God's original desire. And those 3 truths, friends. Number 1, that life is pure gift. God freely chose to create. God brought all life into existence as a free gift. That's love is always other focused. Simultaneously, you and I have free will. Free to accept, free to reject. And that third piece, to grow into that mystery of what? The man and the woman, they were in the garden. They walked in easy friendship with the Lord God. They were naked, and there was no shame. Holding those 3 truths together. That's the original blessing. But yet, because of their desire to place themselves at the center, of their desire to be able to determine what is good and true and right, and to put God on the fringe, sin enters. And that's what sin does. It separates. It ruptures relationship. And then that second week, last week, we looked particularly how the rescue mission began like some 1,800 years before Jesus. Out of the pure initiative of God's goodness. God looked at the great mess that was down there and said, all right, let's get this cleaned up. And so he chooses a man, Abram's 75 years old, whose wife is unable to have children. And they are instructed that one day, if they leave their land, if they learn to trust God, that their descendants will be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And sure enough, that's how it unfolds. Abram, Sarah give birth to Isaac. Isaac and Rebekah give birth to Jacob. And then Jacob has the 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel. And remember, Jesus himself, when he would begin his ministry, what would he do? He'd pull together the 12 apostles. So that whole sense. And again, after the story of Jacob and Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, there's like 400 years where God is silent, where God's not involved, where the rescue operation has begun, but God's not actively participating. So never confuse the silence of God with the absence of God. When you hear his silence and feel his absence, trust his presence. That's just a great truth, friends. Never confuse the silence of God with the absence of God. And when you hear his silence and feel his absence, trust his presence. And then God calls forth Moses. Moses to lead the people from slavery. There's this huge nation now in Egypt, and they've known nothing but slavery. And Moses' task is to lead them towards the promised land. And I couldn't get beyond the first 3 verses because it's all about this sense of Massa and Meribah and the mess. And you and I, many different times in our story, are right there. Massa and Meribah is where they tested the Lord. Where they wanted things to go their way. And watch how the story unfolds. The people, they found fault with Moses and said, give us water to drink. Like, we've been in this desert, we've been in this wilderness, we're so thirsty, we just need water. And Moses says to them, why do you find fault with me? And then the next line is so significant. Why do you put the Lord to the test? You see, Moses is talking to the people amidst their grumbling, amidst their complaining, amidst their whining, amidst their poor, poor, pitiful me, amidst their sense of, why can't we go back to the way it was? At least in Egypt we had water. And Moses says, this isn't about me. This is about you and the Lord putting you to the test. And as it would continue, the Lord answers Moses, I'll be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Moses, you take your staff and you just strike that rock. And if you strike that rock, water will fall forth. Now, who's the rock of our faith? Jesus. And when Jesus was on the cross and they struck him, what flowed forth? Blood and water. The blood of the new and the eternal covenant. And the water of baptism. So brothers and sisters, underneath all of this Massa and Meribah test, it's always about that question of, will you trust me? Will you trust me? That's been such a helpful piece for me this week in the own transitions of my own life. Will you trust me, Randy? And then that's why the waters of baptism are so significant, because when we make that sign of the cross, what we're simply saying is, not my will, but your will be done. Like, I surrender my plans and I want to be what you want for my life. And so here they are, friends. Let's come back to them. Our helplessness attracts God more than our holiness. So where are you helpless this day? Where in the events and the circumstances and the situations of your life are you just saying, I can't, Lord, you can, and you promised. I need you. Another one. Remember, say it with me. This one we should have close to our heart. If God leads you to it, God will lead you through it. That's what it is. If God leads you to it, God will lead you through it. And another one. Lord, lead me where you need me. Can you wake up each day amidst the story and situations of your own life and just say that to the Lord as a prayer? Lead me where you need me. And then this one was so helpful for me about 6 weeks ago as I was working through this, the fact that I was being transferred. And I saw that phrase, the cross we refuse is heavier than the cross we accept. Now, everybody in here, friends, has a cross. Something you did not choose. Some place in your story, some place where life's not fair. Some place where the circumstances aren't what you thought it would be. And you and I can either choose to be bitter, to be resentful, to be grumbling, to be complaining, to be whining. But we still have to carry it. And it's heavy. The cross we refuse is heavier than the cross we accept. That's why, friends, when we gather for the Eucharist, it's so important to gather for the Sunday Eucharist. Because you come forth and you receive, and what you receive, you renew your covenant. Like, I want to trust you, Lord. Lead me where you need me. If God leads you to it, God will lead you through it. And the cross we refuse is heavier than the cross we are to accept.